As a kid, yeah. All a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
Now, for those of you guys who have been subscribed to the channel over the last couple of months, you guys would know that I am really high on both the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into the upcoming NFL season. Now, a good amount of you guys feel like I'm overrating both of these two teams. You guys feel like these are going to be two of the worst teams in the NFL this year. I disagree with that. You see, a lot of you guys have recency bias. You judge how good a team's going to be this year based on what they've done in the past. A good example of this, the Cleveland Browns last year. Last year, I said that the Browns were going to make it to the playoffs. And I got a lot of pushback by making that statement. A lot of people were saying that I was overrating the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns were not going to make it to the playoffs, and they were going to be overrated like always. And I asked you guys who disagree with me saying that the Browns were not going to make it to the playoffs last season. I said, okay, why won't the Browns make it to the playoffs? And you know what a lot of people was telling me? They were saying, JT, the Browns aren't going to make it to the playoffs because it's the Browns. They've been terrible for over the last decade and a half. They're not going to do anything, JT. And guess what? The Browns made it to the playoffs. You guys want to know what's funny? Every time I see these so-called analysts doing their preseason predictions when it comes to predicting which teams are going to make it to the playoffs, something that I notice is that they pretty much have the same teams that made it to the playoffs last year making it to the playoffs this year. You ever see the fantasy football rankings? They don't really change all that much. They have the same top 10 finishers from last year finishing in the top 10 this year. That's recency bias. Recency bias is going off what somebody did last year or what a team did in the past, and not going off based on how good a team is heading into the season this year. The Lions and the Jaguars are not the same teams from last year. They're not the same football teams from a decade ago. They have first-year head coaches. The Jaguars have Urban Meyer. The Lions have Dan Campbell. These are not going to be the same football teams. These are better football teams this year than what they have been, not just last year, but in the past. Now that goes to another question that I've been asked a lot over the last couple of days. It started with Luke G. Luke G asked me this question first. He said, JT, which first-year head coach do you think is going to have more success this year? Dan Campbell with the Lions or Urban Meyer, with the Jacksonville Jaguars? And a couple of my homeboys also asked me this question. And I got to go with Urban Meyer. I feel like Urban Meyer is going to have more success in his first year with Jacksonville than what Dan Campbell is going to have this year with Detroit. The first reason being that I think that Urban Meyer is taking over a better roster situation than what Dan Campbell has right now with the Lions. You look at the Jaguars. I'm not saying that the Jaguars are a perfect team. They have their weaknesses and they have their flaws also. But I think that Urban Meyer has a way more talented roster right now than what Dan Campbell has right now with the Lions. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team that has been stacking talent for over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, I would go as far to say as that the Jacksonville Jaguars have the best young roster in the NFL. Okay, you draft Trevor Lawrence first overall in this past year's NFL draft. You have DJ Chark, who has already made it to a Pro Bowl. You have Laviska Shenault, who is one of the best rookie wide receivers last year. You have James Robinson, who was the best rookie running back in the league last year. You have a lot of good young players on the offensive side of football for Jacksonville. Same thing can be said with the defense. You have Josh Allen, who had 10 sacks his rookie season in 2019. Last year, he missed a handful of games due to injuries. But he's still a really good pass rusher. He's one of the best young pass rushers in the league right now. You still have C.J. Henderson, who had a really good rookie season last year, but he dealt with injuries. You still have a really good group of linebackers. You have Miles Jack. You have Joe Schobert. So the Jaguars have a lot of young talent on this roster that Urban Meyer is going to be taking over. Now, they do have their flaws. They have questions at safety. All right. I have questions about how the interior of their defensive line is going to be looking when it comes to their nose tackle and defensive tackle positions. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions, on the other hand, they have way more talent when it comes to their defensive line than what the Jaguars do. I feel like the Lions have a top 15 or better defensive line heading into this year. They should be really good when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. But they have questions when it comes to the linebacking group. The back end of their secondary when it comes to safety is also weakness, just like how it is with Jacksonville. And corner, I think corner is pretty decent. So for the Lions, you have a lot of questions when it comes to the defensive side of football. Compared to Jacksonville, their biggest question probably is going to be safety and D tackle and nose tackle. Now you look at the offensive side of football. Okay, Detroit has a way better offensive line. Detroit should have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL this year. Jacksonville's offensive line isn't as good as Detroit's, but it's pretty solid when everybody is able to stay healthy. Now we know Jacksonville has an overall better group of wide receivers. I think they have more talent at running back with ETN and James Robinson. Now, the Lions do have TJ Hawkinson, which is an upgrade from whoever the Jaguars have playing tight end this year. But overall, I think that the Jaguars have a better roster than what Detroit has. On top of that, the Jaguars also have a way more easier schedule than what Detroit has. Detroit has to play the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns. Remind you that they're going to be playing both the Steelers and the Browns on the road back-to-back weeks. And we already know how difficult it is to win against the Pittsburgh Steelers in November on the road at Heinz Field. You also have to play the Rams, with the Jaguars play the Rams as well. But the Lions just play an overall tougher schedule than what the Jags are going to be facing off against this year. Now, I do feel like Dan Campbell is going to have a pretty successful year in terms of what the overall expectation is for the Lions. Many people feel like the Lions are going to win at least 3 or 4 games or maybe less. I feel like the Lions should win 5 games or more. Same thing can be said with the Jaguars. But I do feel like Urban Meyer probably will have more success this season because he has an overall better roster situation. And on top of that, the schedule isn't as tough. And I don't think the division is as tough as what the division that the Lions are going to be in the NFC North this year. I mean, you have the Vikings. I think the Vikings are being heavily slept on this year. You have Chicago. I don't think anybody should really be sleeping on Chicago. Despite how the quarterback position looks, they still have a pretty solid roster overall. Compared to the AFC South, you have the Texans, who aren't going to be good. They're probably going to end up being the worst team in the league this year. You have the Indianapolis Colts, which some people don't really know if this is a playoff team or not. It's depending on how good Carson Wentz plays this year. Obviously, we know that Tennessee is a Super Bowl contender in many people's eyes. But overall, I think that the Lions play in a more difficult division than what the Jaguars are facing off in. So overall, I think that Urban Meyer, in the situation that he's in now, is in a better standing when it comes to having more success this year in his first year than what Dan Campbell's having. Now, Dan Campbell has done a pretty good job of changing the overall culture, it seems like, in Detroit. We really won't know that until the season kicks off, because every time people get a new head coach, everybody's always raving about how great the culture is right now and things like that. But at the end of the day, we'll never know until the end of this year. So for Urban Meyer, I don't think he had as many locker room problems and as many cultural problems as Detroit had when Dan Campbell took over. Because you look at the Detroit Lions culture, man, like, there were a lot of people who hated it. Absolutely hated it. Like, Matt Patricia made it seem like it was a detention hall. So Dan Campbell kind of has changed the overall tone. Seems like players are now having a little bit more fun playing football compared to under Matt Patricia. Lions players seeming like they pretty much hated it. And Urban Meyer, I mean, I haven't really heard that much about the tone in Jacksonville, the culture per se, because I haven't really heard any big problems about the culture in Jacksonville ever since they got rid of Tom Coughlin as their GM or their VP, whatever he was. So overall, I think Dan Campbell probably is going to be better in the long run than what Urban Meyer is, because I question how much success Urban Meyer can have in the long term due to his history with, you know, Ohio State and Florida. So I think Dan Campbell will have more success overall than Urban Meyer. But I think Urban Meyer is going to have more success in terms of this season. I think he will win more games. And I think the Jaguars are going to be a little bit more competitive than what Detroit is. Not taking away from how good I feel the Lions are, but I just feel like Urban Meyer right now is in a better situation, roster-wise and schedule-wise, than what Dan Campbell is right now with the Detroit Lions. They have a really brutal schedule. Their schedule the first half of the year is not easy. So you guys let me know who you guys feel like is going to have more success in their first year. Urban Meyer with the Jaguars or Dan Campbell with the Detroit Lions this season. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thanks for watching.